This is going to be a very interesting essay because it's tying in a few different concepts that we've talked about before, but I think the summation of these ideas might help clarify a few questions that some people have. Okay. Um, so this essay is called The Decline into Kehlani, the racially ambiguous girl's escape route. The cultural landscape for biracial women of color, especially those coming from poverty or street affiliated environments, is increasingly shaped by a visible shift away from traditional romantic structures. In Kehlani's latest video, she appears in an intimate dynamic with a masculine presenting woman, a stud, playing the feminine role herself. The video is layered, erotic, and raw, but leaves many viewers wondering, is this what intimacy looks like for girls like her now? Has the gender polarity collapsed entirely for racially ambiguous women who grew up without a clear social blueprint? The truth may lie in the absence of consistent identity formation. Many biracial girls are raised in fragmented households, often under the pressure of code switching between cultures that neither fully claim nor fully nurture them. For women like Kehlani or Koi Lorraine, the role models around them often weren't Black aunties, Muslim matriarchs, or grounded African elders. They were women surviving chaotic systems. They were often left to figure it out, leaning on performative femininity or gravitating toward countercultural identities to craft personhood in a vacuum. So, when the option to love a man isn't grounded in safety, masculinity, or mutual care, many turn to the stud archetype for structure. The rise of the stud as a protector, lover, and stabilizer in the lives of racially ambiguous girls is telling. The stud becomes the replacement for the absent father, the predatory older boyfriend, or the hypermasculine, emotionally unavailable male. She carries the presence of masculinity without the baggage of patriarchy. This is perhaps why so many biracial or light skinned women, especially those from urban or fractured homes, have moved toward queer partnerships. They're seeking safety without domination, romance without erasure. This becomes especially complicated when examining how Hollywood markets figures like Zendaya. She is presented as the face of Black girlhood, despite sorry. Despite her experiences being radically different from the vast majority of dark skinned, full Black girls in America. Her upbringing in a middle class, well, well, mm, Zendaya's ambiguous racial identity becomes a tool for casting directors and executives who want a digestible version of Blackness, further isolating girls who are living the real consequences of racial fragmentation. There's a noticeable contrast between the racially ambiguous girl and the unfriendly Black hotties. Figures like Rihanna, Tyla, or Jasmine Tukes, who are deeply tied to ethnic and cultural specificity. Rihanna's Bayesian roots, for example, anchor her in a Caribbean cultural lineage that comes with ritual, rhythm, and religious reference points. Oh my god. I don't know why that always happens. She may move in high fashion or global circles, but there's always a sense of where she comes from. The racially ambiguous girl, on the other hand, is often floating, untethered, reactive, and constantly shape shifting. Without a defined racial or cultural grounding, many of these girls are raised with mixed messaging: white beauty standards on one side, hypersexualized Black femininity on the other. They are sexualized early, desired by men for their ambiguity, and often left unsupported emotionally. In the absence of cultural guardrails, their relationships become mirrors of the chaos they grew up in. The stud offers a kind of emotional and physical safe house, but this partnership is still a product of systemic breakdown rather than empowered choice. What society interprets as queerness for the biracial girl might actually be a survival response. It's not always about sexual identity, sometimes it's about who made her feel safe for the first time. The stud is not just a lover, but a kind of gender bodyguard, often providing emotional stability when every male around her has been a threat. The femme stud relationship in this context is not always a rebellion against heteronormativity, it can be a refuge. But what does it mean for the future of femininity in communities where women like Kehlani and Coyle Ray are coming of age? There's a sense of collapse, of disorder. No rituals, no rites of passage, no spiritual advisors or elders, just vibes, TikToks, and trauma. And while their visibility helps other girls feel seen, it also normalizes instability as the default love language. It signals to girls without grounded homes or racial clarity that queerness may be their only route to safety, not necessarily by sexual orientation, but through social alignment. The tragedy of it all is these girls were never protected. Their parents couldn't model what stability looked like because they were also lost in racial confusion, generational trauma, and systemic poverty. There is no spiritual home for the racially ambiguous girl in a society that commodifies her body while rejecting her inner life. Without the covering of cultural religion, Islam, Christianity, African traditionalism, she becomes vulnerable to the streets, to predators, and to the media. Compare this to girls raised in African or Caribbean households, like those explored in the Habesha exploration video, or all the African countries black girls come from. Those girls are often seeped in heritage. Whether it's Nigerian Christianity or Ethiopian Orthodoxy, these identities provide more than aesthetics. They offer a code of conduct, a communal expectation, and most importantly, protection. The biracial American girl has no such village. No one is watching out for her unless she builds a new tribe from scratch. So into the void steps the stud, and into the void steps fame. Fame becomes the form of parenting. Queerness becomes the form of structure, and femininity gets flattened into whatever image survives the cultural onslaught of abuse, neglect, poverty, and performative identity politics. This is the decline, not of moral character, but of communal safety for a generation of girls who were too racially complex for the scripts their communities had available. Ultimately, the story of Kehlani is a parable about what happens when no one catches the racially ambiguous girl before she falls. It is a descent into curated chaos where survival becomes identity and identity becomes performance. It's not necessarily that these girls are choosing chaos or even choosing queerness. It's that no other route has been made visible to them. And until society acknowledges the structural abandonment of biracial girls from urban poverty, we will continue to see them descend into curated personalities that look like liberation but are rooted in displacement. There is still hope. Grounding must be reintroduced, not through forced assimilation into blackness or whiteness, but through creating spiritual, cultural, and emotional sanctuaries for these girls to be more than just survivors. They must be given the tools to define themselves, not through rebellion or retreat, but through clarity and care. Until then, they will keep turning to the stud, to the stage, to the spectacle. Because when no one else has your back, you perform. And maybe if the performance is good, someone will finally see you.